It's going to involve some of you whether you know it or not. Yeah. So, and even if you sit in the back, it doesn't matter. I'll be using many of you that morning for an illustrated sermon, and I'm really looking forward to it, and I think you will too. Hey, when I was in high school, there was a teacher that I had that always would say, no excuses for late assignments, and no excuses for any assignment not done according to the syllabus. You know what a syllabus is? How many can spell it right now? Just raise your hand right now if you can spell syllabus. Thank you. A few of you can. Then I got to college, and guess what I found? I also had teachers there that said no excuses, but they were even more adamant about no excuses than my senior English teacher or the senior math teacher, that sort of thing in high school. And so today we're talking about no excuse accepted. No excuse. There are some things in life where you cannot get by and just say, well, I just can't, because God will say unexcusable, inexcusable in that regards. Jeremiah chapter 1, verses 4 through 8. Last week we talked about the first 3 verses of Jeremiah. He talked about his heritage, his lineage. God basically laid out the fact that he had used Jeremiah's parents, his family, his background, his history, the good, the bad, the ugly, everything about his life to get him where he was to accomplish what he needed to accomplish. And nobody out there can say, well, if my family had been better to me, I could do more for God. I can show you examples in Scripture where that's not accurate. Because God took people with no good family background and turned them into men and women of God who did great things for Him. Or if you say, well, you've only been born, if I'd been born in the right side of Kentucky. I heard somebody say that to me when I first got down here. He said, what side of Kentucky you were born in? I said, Indiana. He said, oh, that's a good side. Not sure what that meant, But I understand. There's a lot of, there's a lot of interesting comments made about Eastern Kentucky. I've learned that after living here. I've also heard things about Indiana that are interesting as well. But nonetheless, thankfully you allow a Hoosier to stand in your pulpit and preach to you every Sunday. But some people had this idea that you have to have a certain background to be successful, or a certain financial income. You have to have all these certain things to make it right. And God simply says, just come and follow me, and I will use you the way I want to use you for His glory. And that's what success is all about. But here we go on further. Now the word of the Lord came to me, saying, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. And before you were born, I consecrated you. I have appointed you a prophet to the nations. Then I said, alas, Lord God, behold, I do not know how to speak, because I am a youth. And if you get the picture, you realize that was an excuse. The word of the Lord came to me saying, God spoke to Jeremiah in a way he heard the voice of God. Whether it was audible, whether it was just in his mind, his heart, his spirit, he heard the voice of God. And the first thing he says is, I don't know how to do that. How many out of high school, just right out of high school, knew what you wanted to do? The direction you wanted to go? Let me see your hands. And how many were perfect at it the minute you graduated with that cap and gown and that diploma in your hand? With no experience in that particular job at all. How many people graduated with their bachelor's degree and step into that new line of work and are still nervous about it? Because they've never done that actual work except in maybe a project or an internship or something like that. Just because you have the degree doesn't mean you're perfect at it already when you get it in your hand. No. So when God calls you, God says, I want you to do this or go here or go there, do you think you're going to be perfect at it from that very moment? No. You're going to learn a whole lot over a lifetime, aren't you? And that's what's going on here. But the Lord said to me, do not say, I am a youth, because everywhere I send you, you shall go. And all that I command you, you shall speak. Do not be afraid of them, for I am with you to deliver you, declares the Lord. How many of you in this room have ever said to God, I don't want to do that? Phone call came from Pastor Sam Bush in Jacksonville, Indiana. My car was packed. I was on my way to Trinity Seminary. I was going to walk up in 6 years. I was going to have my PhD, my MDiv, my PhD, and start teaching. I wanted to teach Greek and Hebrew at the Bible college level. That was what I wanted to do. I just got my bachelor's degree in it was a pre-seminary concentration. I minored in animal psychology, church history, Greek, and philosophy. And the youth pastor had a moral failure back in Jasonville, and Sam Bush calls and he says, Pastor Dana, we'd like you to come and be our youth and children's pastor. Would you do that? And I said, no way. Because Jasonville, Indiana, in the rearview mirror was all I cared about. I did not want to go home because those people knew me. They knew all the crazy stunts I'd done as a kid, a teenager. Didn't get saved until I was 15, but I had plenty of history to go on. I did not want to go back. Pastor Bush, I really appreciate the phone call, but I really don't. I leave next week for seminary. And here's my plans. I got it all laid out. One day it's going to be Dr. Coverstone, professor of Greek and Hebrew, and I don't want youth ministries not even in my mind. And I hung that phone up. And the minute I did, you all know what I'm doing, don't you? All of a sudden, every cell inside my head was saying, I want you to be a youth and children's pastor. I said, God, no! I don't want to go back to there. Not home, not there. I've got bigger plans. I've got better plans. I've never had one youth and children's class, God. I'm a pre-seminary major. Think about that. You've got this all wrong. And for 3 nights, I could not sleep, could not eat. At work, even my boss was like, Coverstone, what's wrong with you? Where's your head, man? What's going on? You've not left yet. You've got this job to finish. You're not going to seminary until next week. Just get yourself together. Friday afternoon, I got off work. And I called Pastor Bush back and I said, Pastor Bush, have you hired anybody? He said, no, we're still in the process of looking. I said, well, could I maybe come and do an interview? Well, how? I thought we were going there. Well, yeah, but that's not till next week. And he said, well, when do you want to do it? I said, well, could we do it tomorrow? And I'm in Springfield, Missouri, 8 hours away, okay? So he says, well, I can get the guys together and we'll do that. So I said, okay, I'll be there in the morning about 10 o'clock. Packed the suitcase, or packed the bag real quick and got in my car and drove that 8 hours. All the way home, let me tell you, I did not want to go to that meeting the next morning because I had plans. And those plans did not involve driving a church van full of teenagers to camp or to fine arts events or all over the country. I spent 6 months of my life driving a church van in the 10 years I was there.
Wow.
6 months of my life driving that church van. Pastor Bush has probably spent a whole lot more time than that in all the time he's been over 30 years as their pastor. But I got in that room with those men in Pastor Bush's office, and they asked me some questions, and one of them said, do you feel qualified to do this? And I was like, absolutely not. I don't feel, I want to teach Greek and Hebrew. I don't want to, do stuff with kids on Wednesday nights. And you know what I found out? 10 of the best years of my life. We did kids' revivals. My wife will confirm where we had hundreds, as many as 400 children show up at a church service. And adults going, what are we going to do now?
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. We did camps together, but we had all kinds of kids show up, and they loved that type of ministry. I was very dramatic, and we did Bible studies. I had the kids act out Bible stories, and really, we had 10 of the greatest years of ministry in my life, and I'm so grateful that Pastor Sam Bush called and said, would you come? Because I never would have thought about that. And I'll be honest, for the first couple of days till I moved in that house and in my first youth service, I was thinking, I made a huge mistake. I should be in a class right now. I had a place to live for free. All I had to do was shovel snow in the Kenosha, Wisconsin area, and I would have shoveled a lot of snow and mowed the grass. I had a job making about 25 to 26 bucks an hour in a factory. All I had to do was work, go to class, mow the grass. That was it. And yet God had something for me that I never would have thought I wanted. Not once during Bible calls did I think, I want to be a youth pastor. I want to work with kids. God gave me such a heart. That's why I still have a heart for youth and kids today. Why I have such a heart for Speed the Light. Because that 10 years transformed my understanding of ministry. And as a pastor, I want to be so open to what a youth pastor needs. I want to be so open to helping our young people and our kids gain the knowledge, information that they need to go to do the things they want to do. That's why I'm so big on getting our young people to camp and to fine arts and to being involved in all the things they get. That's why we got teenagers and young people up on our platform every Sunday helping worship. But God had to take me out of my element. Because my mindset was, I'm going this way, and I'm not going to look up to know if I'm going the right way or not. I had a Bible college degree, a double major. I had all these minors, and I was set. And yet God kind of took me up and went, and I'm telling you, I love being a youth pastor. I love that time with those young people and those kids. I love doing discipleship with them. I took those kids all over the country. We did mission trips every summer. We did camps. We did Bible quiz. We did, you name it, we did it. And I fell in love. I fell in love with ministry to young people and kids. And really loved and enjoyed it. So I know what it's like to say, God, I don't want to work with them. I'm just being honest. And that was me. But I also know what it was like to have the Holy Spirit just pound. And I mean pound. I lay awake at night thinking, if my heart beats any louder, it's going to come out of my chest. I remember turning over and just, Lord, what's going on? He would say, you need to go and be youth pastor. But I don't want to be. It doesn't matter what. I actually heard the Holy Spirit speak that to me. It doesn't matter what you want. You can follow me or you can follow your own trail. And that's when I made that call. Pastor Chris, I made the call. An hour later, I was on my way home. In that meeting, I told Pastor Sam Bush, I said, okay, guys, and they had me preach the next morning, you know, just because I was home. And I thought, well, maybe I might not be back for a while, you know. So I preached that message, and I told Pastor Bush, I said, when I get home back to Springfield, I'll call you tonight and let you know. I hadn't driven down the parking lot when God said, you're going back. You're going back. So Monday morning, I called the seminary. And became a non-student. And I called that family, that friend that was going to let me sleep above a garage and just move snow. And hey, I can't stay there. And called the job I was going to have, and said, hey, I decided I'm not coming. And I remember putting that phone down and thinking, did I just make the biggest mistake of my life? I look back now on those 10 years working with Pastor Sam Bush and the great things I learned about ministry and his willingness to let me learn and gain from the way he did business and the way he ran the church. And I probably pastored very many ways in the business side of the church that I pastored just like him. I learned so much from him. I'm so grateful for him, for what he's done and for allowing me to be there. I spent over 10 years as youth pastor there. And that church watched me go through some heartache and some hardship. They saw me meet Jennifer, and become part of my life. They saw the birth of my two kids. Pastor Sam Bush dedicated all three of my kids because of his consistency at the church. I have no regrets, not one regret about ever spending that 10 years in Jasonville. And I have kids, they were kids then, they're now young people on Facebook who are married with their own kids, who are in that youth group, who I've seen grow up and grow from that van kid that we picked up every Wednesday night, every Sunday morning, and sometimes it was just cause us heartache and headache during Sunday morning and Wednesday nights. And I've seen some of those kids really get it and grow in the grace and knowledge of Christ. And I can look back and think, Lord, I'm thankful that you call me to work with young people. I'm thankful that you helped me to have a heart for missions and Speed the Light and BGMC. And over the years, I've raised a lot of money for missions. Have had lunch and meetings with missionary families from around the world. And to see my kids raised in a home as a pastor, to where they had a chance to talk to missionaries and see how the church works. Because believe it or not, your pastor's kids really know how church works. And they see the scars that those parents have, and they understand what you can talk about, what you can't talk about. But I was there. I was that Jeremiah saying, God, I do not want to do this. And as I look back now, I realize it was one of the greatest opportunities in my life. And I'm so grateful today for Pastor Sam Bush and for Jason, Son of God, saying, come back and be a youth pastor. I'm so thankful that church put their faith and confidence in me. as a youth insurance pastor that 10 years, because I got to see the investment of my time and my life into those kids. And I'll tell you, to watch all of you who have grown over the 10 years I've been here, to see the development of your faith, to see you step out, to see many of you step into doing things you've never done before. It thrills my heart. But I almost said no to one of the greatest foundational opportunities in my life. So I want you to learn from Jeremiah. Here's the reality of your life. First of all, the word that came to Jeremiah is for every single soul born on earth. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. God already knew you. He already set you apart. He knew all these things. He understood what your voice would sound like even when it cracked at puberty. He knew what would make you laugh. He knew your temper level. He knew every decision you would ever make, the impact it would have, as well as your facial expressions. He knew how long your hair would be born the moment you came out of your mama's womb. He knew the gifts, the talents, the abilities. He knew what words you would struggle to say the right way as you got older. He knew how good of a speller you would be. He knew what foods you would like. He knew everything about you. Before you were conceived, he knew the favorite ice cream that you would crave every once in a while. He knew whether you would prefer dill pickles or bread and butter pickles. Or no pickles. He knew all those things about you in that regards. He would also know the precise calling on your life and how you would be perfectly equipped to fulfill it. God doesn't call the equipped, he equips the ones he calls. Amen. So you may say, well, I think God wants me to do this or that, but I don't think I can. I've been there. I just shared my testimony with you of telling God, I will not go, I will not do that. And yet I found out. The times in ministry I felt, Lord, if I could just go back to you, Pastor, yeah, I'd love it. Not that that's my plan, my purpose, but I remember the joy and the time when you would see a kid get it. That was the joy of my heart. But God knows the precise calling that you're going to have. And it's also not hard to believe that God would craft us before we were formed. To the time you take your last breath, because he's the creator and the maintainer of your calling. I know people along the line fail, and they make mistakes. And sometimes they're pulled from ministry. Sometimes they get out of marriage, and sometimes they get out of situations or jobs. I was in Springfield, Missouri in fall 1987 when Jimmy Swaggart flew in, and we all know the issue that happened with him. And I remember after that weekend and Monday's newspaper articles came out, I remember walking through the foyer of the dorm I lived in, flower ground, and there was a stack of Bibles next to a trash can. Want to guess what they were? Jimmy Swaggart study Bibles. Yep. And my first thought was, what's this? Now, did what Jimmy Swaggart do affect the anointing of his in the past? Did it affect the insight he had into God's Word in the past? So was it still a resourceful tool? I want you folks to know I've got theological books in my library, in my office, that I don't agree with. But I want to know that position, understand how that works, what those people thought, what they believed. And not to cause trouble to my mind, but I want to know what, some people, some extreme Calvinism, some ideas like that, what they believe, why they believe it, how they believe. It gives me a better understanding of what I own and what I have that I know is right and true.
Amen.
But so often, we're just throw it all out. You ever heard the phrase, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater? You know what that's all about?
Mm-hmm.
Go back to the Middle Ages. When you came and got your bath, first person got all the clean water. Second person got a little bit of clean water. Fourth, if you were the seventh kid in that home, you were in stew by the time you got to the water. And they'd have to throw the stuff out. There'd be chunks of things in there. And sometimes the joke was, don't throw the baby out with the bath water. Sometimes we've got to understand that yes, you might fail. You might make mistakes, and all of us do every single day. It still doesn't change the calling on your life. I am thankful that the Assemblies of God has a rehabilitation program for pastors that fail. I really mean what I say.
Yes.
I'm thankful that if pastors fail, there's a 2-year program they can go through. They can get back into ministry. Because if anybody is someone of second chances, He's the God of second chances. So I'm grateful that God will do that. And a lot of the ones that go back to the rehab don't ever get back into ministry again. And I can understand why. However, I'm thankful that God still uses us. And some of you may say, well, what about this? And what about that? Every single one of us have those issues where we've done things and we think it disqualifies us from doing anything more for God. Anybody ever felt that? And probably go back through your list of sins. And everybody here has a list of sins. There's always things in our mind we always tell ourselves we won't tell ourselves, but we still know what they are about ourselves, don't we? So He knows the purpose. But we also know this, we have our own excuses to why God had the wrong person. And Jeremiah said, I can't talk to people. I'm not good at that, so find somebody else. And God said, do not say. Whew. You ever say, God, I can't do this? And God says, don't say that. Well, I've been divorced X amount of time. Don't say that. Well, I can't talk. Don't say that. Well, look what I did. Remember what I did when I was a kid? Don't say that. God, you got to have somebody else. No, I got you. You. That's all I got. Jeremiah did, and we all do the same. All of us do this. We all say, God, you got to have somebody else for this. I know it's like to say, God, I do not want to be a youth and children's pastor. That's not in my mind is what's successful, and it wasn't even about success. I wanted to teach. I wanted to teach at the college level. I wanted to have my doctorate. I wanted to be Dr. Coverstone. I wanted to teach this and that. And then God said, I don't care what you want. Not in the mean way, not in the bad way. He said, that's not what I've made you for, Dana Coverstone. I've made you for something else. You may have an inkling and intention to go and do these things, but here's what I want you to do with the calling I have on your life. And sometimes we hope somebody else will do it when nobody else can come close. You are the only you that God made. You are the only one that can fulfill that calling on your life. Why? Because you alone are you. Amen. There's nobody else that can do it. Oh yes, there are people that may be gifted in the same way, the same stream, the same length, but they are not you. They will not have the same influences that you have or be the same influence that you are to others. It's all about you and where He takes you. So God needs you to say yes. The Lord said to me, do not say. He said, God, I cannot do this because I'm not able to speak. I can't talk well. So basically what we find out is this. No excuse will be accepted. Nada. Nothing. Not one of them will be accepted because God knows better. He already sees bigger than you. Think about this. God knows every major decision each one of you in this room will make in the next 5 years. God knows every decision that will have a financial impact, an educational impact, a family impact in your life. He knows every single one of those things. For younger people, He knows the college you're going to go to, the first job you're going to have. Because He knows, I love seeing Adam's grandson. That little boy smiles more than all of us together. I just love seeing him. Love to watch him during worship. He's up there with Adam right now. He probably smiles at your head like he smiles at mine. God already knows the first major word He'll say, the first sentence He puts together. He knows the first grade he'll get in 6th grade in English or math. He already knows. Everything is already packaged into that kid right now. God's call is perfect in him to be found and be discovered through every day and every step of his life, every move, every direction, every decision he makes. And your calling is in your spiritual DNA, and it can't be taken out or away. I have a lot of respect for Jimmy Swaggart. This may make a lot of people either online or here mad, but I have a lot of respect for Jimmy Swaggart. He confessed, although I wish he would have gone with what the Assemblies of God recommended he do. I really wish he would have done that. When you watch him in ministry, he's a different preacher than he used to be. Let me say, he's a different man. You ever read the book I Was Wrong by Jim Baker. One of the best books I've ever read in my life. Jim Baker, who founded and did the PTL ministry, and we know got caught up in some of the same type of sins. But in his book, he basically says, I was wrong, I messed up. Here's where I messed up. Here's what's going on. And I've spoken with his son, spoke with the ministry in the last several months, and I'll tell you what, he's a different man than he was. He allowed God to break him, and in breaking him, established that call and made a difference in people's lives. He teaches differently. He speaks differently today. Why? Because he's been broken. And brokenness is a good thing for us. God, I pray God breaks me every day. Breaks the habits, breaks the things in my life that are not pleasing to Him. But we have to understand this. Their calling's in your spiritual DNA. Nothing can change it. Nothing can take it away. You may be silenced for a while because of other circumstances and things, but God never takes it away from your life. It's yours. It's in you. So you need to go where He sends you and say what He tells you to say. And that's the very first thing that Jeremiah said, well, I can't do that. I'm too young. I don't know how to talk in front of people. My freshman year, I got saved when I was a freshman in high school. And I was in a group called a show choir. And we would sing and dance. We'd actually go to different schools and do tours. And it was like a choir that just was active and loved it. And the guy that was running sound and ran the sound system for the whole group, I think he broke his leg or broke a bone or something, and could not go on the tour. And so it was a Thursday or Friday that we were going to be going to several different schools, and I got in the bus, and Gail Figg, the director, she said, Dana, I need you to run the sound. I said, well, I've never ran sound before. She said, you're perfect for it.
Yeah.
I was like, but I've never done this before. She said, just set up, everything's already, you just help get it all plugged in. Help EQ things out. I'd never touched a microphone. Oh, and by the way, since he won't be here, you need to introduce all the songs. I'm just a freshman. You got seniors in the show choir. Let them do it. No, I think you'd do better. I want you to get there and just introduce the songs. And so the first school was like, we're doing this song, watch us dance. And that was it, Second school, we're doing this song, watch us dance, and hope you enjoy it. By the third school, I had a little bit more in there. And I look back now and realize that she gave me one of my first public speaking opportunities as a high school freshman. And for the next 4 years I was in show choir. Guess who did all the introductions for the songs?
Wow.
Guess who knew a little bit about sound and things like that? All the time having no realization that God was giving me an open door to public speaking and be in front of people. Some of the doors you've walked through, you don't even realize what door you've walked through yet. But you look back and go, oh, that's why that was there. Anybody ever do that with, that's why that person was in my life. That's why I was given that responsibility or that job. I think we've all done that, all had those moments when we just realize that. And that's the things that are happening. And yes, it'll cost you something when you do that. And it will cost some more than others. Would anybody here like to know that your grandchildren, who are maybe female and under the age of 5, that their parents, your son or your daughter, are going to Syria as missionaries? Anybody here up for that? I didn't see any hands. What if God calls one of you to go to inner city, Detroit, Michigan, or St. Louis, or Los Angeles, and help kids learn how to read? What if God calls to do that? Anybody got any good reasons why you shouldn't do that? But when God calls you and says, here's where I want you to go, you go. So some people will have a whole lot more to pay because of the calling of God on their life. But for them, and even though it may not be what you think is hard or terrible, for them it may be hard. Jeremiah had one, do not, but God had 2, literally. Do not say that you're young and not a speaker. Because he literally said, let me read it for you again. Behold, I do not know how to speak because I am a youth. I do not know how to talk. I do not know because I'm young. I'm too young. God, I'm too young for this. Call somebody older with more maturity and more life experience. And yet God had to say to him, do not say. Do not say I'm a youth. Do not be afraid of them. Think about that in that regards. You see, God knows better because He crafted you specifically. He knows exactly what you can do and what you cannot do. He knows exactly where you're going to be, who you're going to influence, who you're going to talk to, and what's going to happen in your life. He already knows, which is why He's saying, I need you to do this. You can't walk away from this opportunity. You have, because in your line of work, where you're going to be going to school, where you're going to work, you're going to meet people, certain people who nobody else will ever meet but you, and you need to speak into their lives and their hearts. And we have to step into that calling that God has for us today, and without excuse. We say, well, I'm just a stay-at-home mom. That's a calling and a ministry. And your investment in those kids as they grow up in this day and age, in this world, where what we were taught and what we believe may be considered illegal to be spoken of here in just a few months, especially if H.R. 5 passes the Senate.
Yeah.
Our lives are going to change, though. Education is going to change. Dressing rooms, you may have seen this. American Family Association covered this. A lady went to try on a wedding dress and was helped by someone she thought was a woman, wearing a dress all made up. Takes clothing off, puts this dress on, comes out, shows her family member, and they say, that's a man wearing a dress that just helps you undress in that dressing room. American Family Association, you can go online, Google it, you're going to find it. And the manager, when she was confronted, had no problem at all with that. I would have had a real problem.
Amen.
In my house right now, we're talking about weddings and wedding dresses and things like that, you know? Where's Pastor Dana? He got arrested. Why? That's the things that are happening, folks.
Yeah.
And that world is why we need God's called people to speak out, stand up, and do what we're called to do. We've got to do it. Nobody else can. And then in verses 9 and 10 it says this, and the Lord stretched out His hand and touched my mouth. And the Lord said to me, behold, I put my words in your mouth. See, I have appointed you this day over the nations, over the kingdoms, to pluck up, to break down, to destroy and overthrow, to build and to plant. Now, not that that's all that big of a deal. Jeremiah goes from, I can't speak, I'm too young, never done this before, to I'm pointing you over the nations, Jeremiah.
Oh my.
Stop giving me your excuses. Because I'm not going to accept them in that regards. He will strengthen what you think is weak, and He will use it for your glory. God has a habit of taking the things that we say we can't do and showing us that He can if we just let Him. Those of you that have raised kids in this room, you understand something. You already see the personality and the characteristics of those kids as they got older. I love watching the two little girls that are up here quite a bit. I see their passion to get up on this platform and be a part of what's happening with worship. I see their excitement when they see things they've never seen before. The other day they're up here and they picked up this. I can't tell you exactly what the name of this is, but it sounds cool. Okay? And the one little girl had it and the other little girl wanted it. Everybody saw that? Well, what was neat about it was they understood that this was somehow connected to this here. Right? And if they're doing something making noise, I'm going to get there and make noise too. So, was there a lesson that those little girls learned about church that they may not understand it in the metaphysical or in the natural? They may not understand it at all, except all they knew was there's something going on up here and I want to be a part of it. And you know what? We got to have that same attitude. God, I know you want me on that platform. I just don't know exactly what to do. So I'll pick up that toy that they thought this was a toy. And the toy was a tool. They didn't realize it. So in that regard, we got to understand this. And what you say you can't do, He'll do through you anyways. I said, God, there's no way you can use me as a youth pastor. Because all I want to worry about is this and that, the academic part of things. I want to be a professional. Lord, just show me. Sometimes those kids want to hear all these stories about my life when I was a kid, all the dumb things I did, all the crazy risks that I took and stuff that came out, that happened in my life. And that's why I always try, if the kids are up here, I want to use them as an illustration at that moment to show you things. Because God can use anything as an illustration. God can use anything as a sermon illustration if you just listen and pay attention. But I remember thinking, Lord, I don't want to do this. And yet over that 10 years, there were times God stretched me, and stretched me, and stretched me, and stretched me, and stretched me. It was all for the good in my life. God will use you to pull up, break down, to destroy and overthrow. Maybe not on a national level in that regards, but also the build and the plant. And maybe not on that national level, but you never know the influence you're going to have over those in your area of influence. If you would have said last year at this time, when COVID started, Pastor Dana, a year from now, an average of 35,000 people every morning will pray with you at 7 a.m. or over that day, I would have said, what have you been smoking? I really would. There's no way I would have thought that. See, God has a way of changing and shifting things without us even realizing it. And I promise you, you have no idea the influence you're having on young people or adults around you. Molly, you have no idea how many of those young ladies that you play ball with, softball and basketball with, you have no idea the influence you're having on them because they see your commitment to Jesus, to the church, to the Word. You have no idea the influence you're having on the people, the young people around you. Amen. I know that because I've had teachers at the elementary level and the middle school level telling me that. I've even had people at the high school level say, I can't wait to have a student like Molly Vincent in my room because I know that kid's a good student. And you had no idea they were talking to me about these things. Elijah, I heard something about you too. You mind if I tell you? Anthony, when you need to do this though? No. I heard about a great attitude playing basketball with the guys you play ball with. Patience with other players and how helpful you are. Okay. Happy birthday, man. How old are you? How old? I don't even remember 14. I don't remember how young 14 used to be. And I also had somebody a couple weeks ago here at church. They're not here this morning, but they told me this. They said, I love watching that young man with his little sister. Just the way you see, we don't understand that people are watching everything we say, everything we do. Matter of fact, I thought when I brushed you with that little girl, I thought, yeah, that young man may have a future in youth and children's ministry. You never know. I'm not calling you into that. I'm just saying I see the tools. I see the impact you're having with the child. And that says a lot. I had 4 older sisters, and it was rough in my house. One time, both of my sisters were carrying me across a ditch, and they grabbed my arms, and they pulled both my arms out of socket. Not on purpose. I didn't let them touch me for 30 years, but nonetheless. Yeah. Stay away! I remember waking up in the ER when they put my arms back in, they popped them back in. It was crazy, So my older sisters were always, I never had the little sister to take care of. Me and my brother got way too much trouble. But I want you to think about this. You have no idea who you've influenced. You have no idea how many people have gained something from your life just watching you. The patience you have with people, the situations you deal with people. But God's also the one making this promise and this declaration of your life. It's not the enemy. It's not your mom or your dad. It's not your family. It's not some teacher. It's not your mentor in college. It is God saying, I have called you to do this and this and this. Now go do it. And I'll walk with you. I'll give you the tools. I'll give you the resources. Some of those tools and resources you'll pick up over the time you're doing it. But for the most part, He's already put it in your spiritual DNA in your life. He knows you from the inside out. And from even before you were born. He knows every terrible, nasty, awful thing you've ever said, done, or thought. He knows those things and yet doesn't say, oh my goodness, I'm taking my calling away from that one. He doesn't do that.
Amen.
Thank God he doesn't do that. Or else David would have been kicked to the side of the curb in Jerusalem. And yet the Word of God says he was a man after God's own heart. An adulterer and a murderer. How does that happen? Because God takes our lives and shapes our lives. And also because David was repentant. Although it took Nathan the prophet to say, David, you are the man. And when David felt the weight of that, he repented. And your calling, understand what I'm about to say, your calling will not be without repentance. Your calling will not be without a requirement to live and walk a certain way and do things a certain way. And if it's in your will to commit to doing God's plan, he will accomplish it through you in your lifetime. Because God's calling is his will for your life. So that is not a misprint. If it's in your will, if you say, okay, God, you show me what to do, where to go, I will do it. And you keep your eyes on him, guess what? It's your calling. Your calling is not my calling, right? My calling is not your calling. Every single one of us has something to do, people to influence, something to change, something to do. I do believe that scientifically out there somewhere, there is somebody with the brain power and the understanding to discover the cure for every kind of cancer that's out there. I believe that. Why do I believe that? Look at where we are in America in 2021. Anybody watch the new Mars rover? They took many scientists and they compacted all the information they had to build the perfect rover to go to that planet, to go around a whole different hundreds and hundreds of miles of area, take pictures, photographs, look at rocks, analyze things. Thinking about trying to get people on the planet of Mars someday in the future. We have a Hubble telescope in space that sends thousands of pictures back to NASA every single day. From areas that are literally light years away. If you travel at the speed of light, it would take you a year to get there. Somebody had to figure out how to make that thing. And even though there are musicians and scientists and very, very smart people in the secular world that are not saved, that are using their gifts, their talents for God, there's a whole lot of people that are saved. And are saying, Lord Jesus, show me how to do this, how to accomplish this thing. Do a Google search sometimes for patents, medical devices, and things that were built by Christians. Men and women of God who were filled with the Spirit. Even non-Spirit-filled people who took the brain that God gave, and the call in their life was to design medical equipment, or this or that, or this part or that part. You'll be surprised what God has shown people. Understand this. Man can't figure a lot out. Are we limited in what we can do? We're limited in how long we can live? Limited in how long you can do a good skill, or have a certain skill with precision? I'm starting to understand the aging process a whole lot more. I don't like it.
Amen.
But yet, until we draw our last breath, God wants to use us. So remember, there is no excuse that he will accept. There is no excuse that God will accept when it comes to fulfilling your will for him. He wants you to realize he's given you a call. He's given you a purpose. He's given you a plan. I know some of you are saying, well, my time to do that was long ago. Are you still breathing? Because if you're still breathing, there's still a call of God in your life. And I personally knew a lady I've talked about who was in a nursing home who never walked for 8 years. That's 8 years of her life. Who would pray for people to be healed, and God would see them healed. Because God got a hold of her life and said, I'm not done with you yet. And they would wheel her bed down to other nursing home bedrooms so she could pray for the sick. And we saw people healed. Miracles. I'm talking miracles. Because they would wheel this lady down in her bed who God never healed. She fell and broke both her hips. She'd pray for the sick and see him healed. Same lady who said, I guess I'm going to die now because my hips are broke. I can't do anything. So I'm going to speak firmly to each one of you just like God spoke to. Do not say, too old for God to use me. Do not say, I'm too young for God to use me. Do not say, I can't do anything, I can't influence people. Do not say those things. And I'm being biblical. Why? Because God said the same thing to Jeremiah. Do not say you're too young. Do not say you can't talk. So what's holding you back from fulfilling your calling?
Amen.
What's holding you back? I know a lot of you folks that are here today are retired. Are not in the workforce anymore. There's a lot of really good opportunities. I know COVID's kind of shut things down. But here's what I've discovered. If you say, Lord, give me something to do, He will. No doubt about it. God, show me what I can do for you. He'll show you. And He'll open doors that nobody else can open for you. He'll shut doors that will never open because He does not want you going through that door to begin with.
Amen.
So if you're here today and you've had some excuses about fulfilling God's call, you say, well, I've done this or I've done that, there's no way God can use me. Have you read the Bible to see the kind of people that God used to begin with? Both before and after. Noah had an immoral thing that happened to him after the boat landed. He gets drunk. His sons have some issues. Let's talk about David and the mess he made. How about Solomon? The wisest man in the world who should have just stayed with one woman.
Amen.
What about Jonah? Ain't going to do it. And he dove in the water. I'm going to get out of here. And God said, not when you get out of here that easy. James and John, the sons of thunder. Boil-headed men who were fishermen, who could not keep the language from flowing out of their tongue, and they were hot-headed guys who were always in fights and causing trouble. And yet one of those guys got the greatest revelation of the future history of this country and the world, and he was James and John, the son of thunder. So I don't care what your past is. I don't care how many failures you've had. I don't care what you've done. God doesn't either. He just says, confess, repent. Come on, let's go. Let's get this taken care of. Let's work on this thing. Some of you may feel like, well, you had a spiritual issue a couple years ago or decades ago, and you're still hurt, you're still wounded, and you're afraid to walk. You can stay crippled all your life spiritually if you want. And please, watch what I say. I've met a lot of spiritual cripples in the church world. Well, this happened and that happened to me, and I'm just going to do this. You know, bitterness is one of the easiest things to see on the faces of people in the church.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You can tell. You don't have to go through a class or sensitivity training to see bitterness. All you have to do is look in the heart, the eyes, and the face. And every church that I've been at, there have been people who are spiritually crippled who just refuse to walk because they don't want to address the painful situation they dealt with. Or that pastor did this, or that pastor hurt me, or this leader did this or that, or nobody came to my side, nobody came to help me. You may be here today and you're saying, you know what? There's some elements in my spiritual walk where I need to get right with God. If you're running from your call, or you're struggling with the call of God in your life, I want to challenge you to come to this altar this morning. Even now, begin to come. I'm not going to necessarily give a formal come, but I'm just saying right now, come. Remember, that word come is important. I think there's a good reason Micah picked those songs for this morning. Because come requires a step. Come requires it. So if you're struggling in your call, you're hesitant about stepping out into that call, would you come? If you're frustrated about what God's asking you to do or calling you to do, would you come? Even asking you to come. Find a place at this altar. If you're not doing the things that God has called you to do, and you know He's calling you to do them, if you're just kind of sitting there and not doing anything, I'm going to challenge you to get up and to come. And to let the Lord use you. Let the Lord speak to you. Let the Lord encourage you. whether we have one or everybody in the church, I'm fine. But I know I preach the word I'm supposed to preach. And God's asking you to step up and to answer that call. The call that's been on your life from the moment you were conceived. Even before you were out of the womb, God knew you. When He was shaping you in that womb of your mother, He knew the heart you were going to have, every condition you would deal with. He knew the things that you would face, the challenges you would go through. He knew where you would be. So if that's you, I encourage you to come and find a place. I'm going to ask some other ladies if they would just to gather around Martha and Shelby. Begin to pray for them. You can kneel down in your seat if you want to pray there. Let's find God's call. Let's step out in it. And let's step out in that call as a church, folks. As a church. As a church. As a church, God has called us to do something. As a church, God's called us to accomplish something in this community, at the schools, at the nursing home, at the hospitals, and as far as favor, as far as influence. God has a calling on our church.